And we are live. What's up, everybody? And welcome to my makeshift ghetto studio. As you can see, I have a mic in my hand. My office is inaccessible at the moment. But the reason why I'm here is I'm a good friend, Matt, and you and I know each other for, I don't know, a year and a half, something like that right now, give or take.
And, yeah, it's been about over a year.
Yeah, something like that. And lately we've been talking a lot about NFTs, and in my mind, I think Matt's probably one of the top guys in the world when it comes to NFTs, so non-fungible tokens. And so the premise of our kind of talk today or episode today is kind of talking about what are NFTs, where we are currently with NFTs, and where do we have to go with NFTs for them to actually be, I would say accessible plus also usable on a global aspect. So Matt, based on your, let's say, research lately, I'll ask you two questions. Number one is, in your words, what are NFTs? And then number two, where are we currently? Oh, we lost your audio. Technical difficulties. Literally, we had it a second ago. Dun, 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 dun. That's odd. Bear with us, guys, while we try to figure out the audio. It was all working in pre-production testing, but for some reason, it's not working in live. Very odd. Huh. Ugh, this mic moves around too much. You want to log out and log back in? Maybe that'll work. Let's do that. Bingo. All right, guys, bear with us. Matt will log out, log back in. It's Google Hangouts. What do you expect? Someone should invent a legitimate video podcasting solution where it's like an all-in-one suite where you log in, the guests is side by side, and there's transcripts and audios, but All right, so we see your mic is muted. Oh, do we hear something?
You might get some feedback. Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Okay. That's interesting because I've shut down all apps. I can't even see myself. Can you hear me?
Feedback. We hear you, but hear feedback.
Okay, hold on.
Yeah, no worries.
This should work. I'm just going to turn you down really quiet. Can you hear me?
Sure.
Feedback?
We're good.
Okay.
All right, we're going to continue where we were. So we're talking about, what are NFTs and where we are currently with them.
Yeah, exactly. So first of all, an NFT is a non-fungible token. What does that mean? Well, it's kind of hard to understand without understanding fungibility. So fungibility is just simply a property of money. So it's like cash. So ERC20 tokens, which obviously the standardization of those led to a big boom in basically the ICOs and the token sales, because everyone and their dog could basically publish an ERC20. Now, those tokens are fungible, which means that, if Amir has 20 of a particular token, and then I have, 20 of a particular token, and we swap those tokens, then basically we're right back where we started. So fungible tokens are kind of like cash. It's no different than, thousands of years ago, people used shells, salt, silver coins, and basically this is just money. So non-fungible tokens are a bit different. They're more like baseball cards or stamps. So each one is unique. It's part of maybe a limited edition run. It's got a unique kind of image or attributes or properties. So in a kind of a tribal sense, it's a bit more like masks or jewelry. And these kind of denote maybe that somebody is more special or higher ranked than another person because of the attributes of the mask or the jewelry. And in modern day sort of stuff, it's kind of like baseball cards or magic cards. And that's non-fungible tokens right now. So what's really interesting is we're at an interesting time in the space. The standard just got finalized. There was a last minute kind of breaking change, but it kind of got pushed through, and it's actually kind of good that it does. It helps with a lot of extensibility. If we want to get more technical, we can go into that, but let's just stay on the surface for now and just say, you know, ERC 721 on Ethereum has been standardized. There's a great standard interface. A lot of really smart people were involved in that. It was originally proposed by Dieter Shirley from Axiom Zen, also known as the company that produced CryptoKitties. He originally proposed it back in September, and then it got standardized by the community. And William Enriken is one of the guys, or as he's better known as @FullDecent, was one of the guys who really kind of took up the torch and finalized the standard. So that's what's going on right now.
Where would you say most people are kind of focusing on the use cases for it?
That's a good one. So right now, the use cases, I mean, games are just exploding right now. So basically, the reason is anyone can kind of create characters that are represented by NFTs. These NFTs can level up. So, you know, as you play the game in a provably fair way, the characters can kind of gain attributes and kind of go up in rank. And then, you know, this is all done. It's provable through sort of a master game contract that that governs how upgradable these tokens are. So that's kind of how that's a really big part of how NFTs are being used. But there's other interesting aspects of them, like identity, like sort of representing an avatar on different websites. So right now we could do that with our Ethereum wallet, but I guess, you know, Amir, you'll understand this drawback right away. If I use my Ethereum account to use that as a login or to represent my identity on a website, and then let's say I want to pass you the credentials. I mean, with an Ethereum account, if I give you the private key, you have no idea, or sorry, you have no way to change that private key, and you don't know if I've copied it down somewhere. So now we have this sort of leaky account kind of issue, right? Where, you know, you don't know if I still have the private key, and you don't know if you have kind of full control over this account now, and nobody else is going to log into it. But with an NFT, we could actually transfer the ownership of an identity from one account to another. So that's something that I think is a really powerful aspect of a non-fungible token. So a unique token to represent avatars, represent identity, represent logins, represent software licenses. So I see we're going on a tour now. Where are we headed? You're going to walk into my apartment, aren't you?
Yeah. Oh, no. Edition. Oh, I was going to see Jason.
We're going over to see Horizon.
No, I'm not going to bug them yet. No, that's cool. Go back to the identity part. Kind of dive into a little bit more, because that's a fascinating aspect of it.
Right. So the same challenges that face identity on the blockchain with something like Civic or Status and Uport, it's the same challenges. You know, basically you take some account, some unique hash, some unique public key, and you need to verify it. You need the same level of KYC, let's call it claims, attestations, or whatnot about that unique hash, UUID, for that identity. You still need to do the same amount of work. Now, if you just do it with a non-fungible token, then, and basically the identity is not something, you know, something really, really, truly scarce in the real world. So let's say it's just a virtual avatar, and then this avatar gets access to software licenses or gets access to special areas in a video game or special experiences online, then you can actually transfer it. And you can't do that with a public, like a public-private key pair, because I explained before, you know, we would have that sort of leaky private key issue. So that's where I think NFTs really shine. I mean, you know, fungible tokens are they are scarce units, but they're indistinguishable. So, you know, it's just a bunch of, it's essentially a bunch of, you know, gold dust on the.
Oh, I think we dropped you on the audio. I think Google's being evil today. They're practicing their #1 slogan. They say don't do evil. That's the opposite. Yeah, no audio. Everyone's saying that. You know what we can do? If this is giving us problems, man, we can just reschedule it to make things easier. You want to do that? Or no?
I should be back.
Oh, I think you are back, man. Yeah, we're good.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. So, okay.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we're good. We're good. Can you hear me? I can hear you.
Okay. Sorry about that. You know, when in doubt, switch to the phone. Here we go.
There we go.
Okay, I'm back. So yeah, just talking about identity use cases and for NFTs. There's also lots of other use cases. So you see a lot of things happening in games. So rare items, and basically people are using them to do. You know, there's a few different types of blockchain games. I forget the write up, but it basically had, you know, sort of there's full blockchain games, so everything is happening kind of on chain about the game. Then there's sort of different layers on top of that. I think it was one of the guys from User Feeds was publishing some information about that. So, you know, the scarcity happens on chain, and then you build user interface layers on top of that. What I think is really interesting about the fact that some aspects of blockchain games can exist on chain, and other aspects can happen in game contracts, and then even more aspects can happen in the user interface, is that you can have these scarce assets actually actually move from game to game. So someone could jump into a game, they start as a peasant and they go around, you know, beating sheep over the head and earning some experience points, and they choose to become you know, a warrior or a wizard. And then they earn some more experience points, they move themselves up in the ranks, and then they lift that character out of the game. They sell it on a decentralized marketplace like Rarebits or OpenSea for NFTs. And then another player buys it, and then they drop it into another game, and all of a sudden they're, you know, there's some mechanic in a game like Team Fortress, and they're building turrets. So it's really interesting to see that these assets could be granted sort of like visibility in other interfaces, other games, and by other game contracts. So the question comes up, and I've received this question before: why would an indie game developer do this? And I basically said, okay, well, you've got instant players. You know, why did somebody build a game, an interface game on top of CryptoKitties called Kitty Race? Because they made money, because people raced their cats. So it was it's a whole kind of new realm of permissionless innovation. It brings up, for games, it brings up some interesting questions, and that is, one of them is, if a player can immediately drop into your game, and let's say it was a role-playing game, as a level 17 warrior, how do you start the story from there? How do they find out everything that happened to them if they simply just bought a level 17 warrior on a decentralized marketplace and then dropped into this brand new game experience? So there's a lot that's going to be unpacked in the next few years. So it's really interesting space.
That's pretty cool. But you were mentioning something before, how you can have a NFT that owns other
I'm
tokens.
just having
as an
trouble
ownership
hearing you
model.
now. I can't believe it. Go ahead.
What you told me earlier is pretty interesting. Not earlier today, but before, where you're mentioning how an NFT can be an owner of multiple different tokens.
Yeah, that's right. So basically, I'm also working on a standard called composables, and that would be for composable non-fungible tokens. And I'll kind of introduce the concept. So basically, you would have a non-fungible token that would represent a virtual basket. So it's like a crypto bag, and inside that bag, you could put a bunch of other non-fungible tokens. So you could put a few crypto kitties. And then you could also fill them up with ERC20s of different projects. So you could have a bunch of balances of ERC20s, all from different contracts. And the reasoning behind this, or one of the key motivators, is that right now, if you or if I wanted to give you a basket of a bunch of crypto assets, and I wanted to say, okay, here you go, Amir, I'm going to start off, your crypto account with a bunch of this stuff. And it was, a CryptoKitty and an Ether bot or an ETHmoji, a couple of other non-fungible tokens, and some ERC20s of some really cool projects where you would be able to try out their betas. So if I wanted to start that off, again, I share you my private key of this account, but then you don't know if what I'm doing, you don't know if that wallet is safe. So in any event, you would have to transfer out each one of those in order for it to be safe. So you still face the same problem. So I think that composable non-fungible tokens solves this problem of basically having one token where you can transfer the ownership of that wholly and sort of provably on the blockchain trustlessly. And then from there, you're free to do with those tokens whatever you want. And the idea with the standard is that you don't actually have to take them out of the bag to transfer them out or to do anything with them. You can actually reach inside that bag and grab the items that you're interested in and use them in those specific projects. So that's the motivation behind that standard.
Now, from a tech standpoint, how far away do you think we are from using this from a scalable aspect? Like CryptoKitties obviously cause a congestion in Ethereum network. In our office, we have a great video game company building something, but building off-chain solutions. But in your best, let's say, judgment, how far off do you think we are from actually having scalable solutions to build on a grand scale?
Do you mean NFTs or just kind of like blockchain games, the space in general?
Sorry, say that again.
Are you asking about scalability of for example, blockchain games, just the space in general, or just
Space
NFTs
in general
specifically?
with NFTs, because for example, NFT with blockchain games, one example, when they can do with their own unique variation. But then you have NFTs for all these different. You can have NFT, for example, with tickets. Substituting for ticket masters. You can have NFT, as you mentioned, for identity. Generally speaking, per se, based on these ERC 721 contracts, how far off do you think we are from at least getting some momentum more into the scalability aspect of it?
Sure. So that's a really interesting question. As far as I know, a lot of the state channel tech that's being built right now is based around basically fungible tokens and sort of making transfers between parties. Now, I think that there's not too much sort of that's not a similar situation to that. A bunch of parties would need to jump onto to a state channel and basically all agree that they're going to swap non-fungible tokens. And then basically we're moving around the ownership of these UUIDs or integers of these tokens. in simply a one contract. So a non-fungible token is just a contract like a fungible token is. So I think that as far as I know, I don't know anyone building those state channels right now. I do know of sort of the generalized state channels and counterfactual and things like this. And I don't know how far we are away from that, but yeah, that's sort of what would need to happen is somebody needs to make a sort of an abstract or generalized state channel just simply around non-fungible tokens. That would obviously be the first step.
And then maybe. Are you going to do that?
Sorry, who you're talking? Are you talking to Liam or something?
But no, that's it. Yeah, it's for me. It's always like I see so many amazing use cases for it. But for me, it's like, okay, is the timing correct? What's the adoption curve for this? How easy it is to implement in a legacy system? Is it difficult to implement? It's like, all these like unknown questions come into play.
Absolutely. So I think that one of the things that was really really unfortunate was something like CryptoKitties did clog up the Ethereum blockchain. I mean, and if you're going to do this all just with smart contracts on the main chain, it's obviously not the best approach. I think that projects, especially if you're doing games, especially if you have to look at where the actual digital scarcity is being transferred. So, and when the transfers are happening. So I think that blockchain games where you can find items and they're non-fungible tokens, you can go to the store in the game and you can trade your game gold for non-fungible tokens. You can meet another player and you can trade non-fungible tokens inside a marketplace inside the game. I think all of that needs, if it's going to be happening rapidly, like let's say somebody's playing for 2 or 3 hours and it's going to be happening non-fungible token transfers, maybe 12, 24 of them, then you scale up and think about games that have a lot of adoption, even just with 1,000 players. I mean, it starts to become pretty wild, right? So that we have one game on the Ethereum blockchain attributing to tens of thousands of non-fungible token transfers. Not only that, the cost to your users is quite high. So I think we need to explore those scaling solutions. And thankfully, in generalized state channels and other sort of more specific state channel tech that we've already seen rolled out in betas on the mainnet, it's very exciting time right now to be developing on Ethereum. And this state channel tech is just evolving every day. It's getting better and better. So I think that seeing a non-fungible token state channel, a specific one that could be used for different projects right away, would be coming down the pipe like shortly, and then seeing an actual sort of generalized one that can be used for multiple non-fungible tokens and maybe fungible tokens purchasing non-fungible tokens from something like a market or a store contract inside a game. I think that could be happening probably, I don't know, I don't want to make any predictions, but maybe 3 months on testnet, 6 months on
make
mainnet,
the prediction. I was about to ask you, what's your prediction?
Okay. I got my crystal ball here.
And I have an interesting thought, though. For example, when you're going to have Ethereum, you're going to have all these like side chains coming out or Ethereum competitors coming out, whether that is Polkadot, you have Cosmos, you have Aeon, et cetera, et cetera. It's like, okay, if I want to create, like, say, NFTs on all these different platforms, are we able to communicate with these NFTs from cross platforms?
That's something I think I would really like to see. I mean, right now, can we export and import ERC20s across chains? I know that the Metronome project was working on that, basically saying that, they wanted to create a fungible token. And the sole purpose of the fungible token was to basically be able to live on any smart contract chain that can, in fact, encode fungibility in a smart contract kind of way. So whether that's a non-Turing complete scripting language that still allows you to create fungible tokens, like general purpose kind of fungible tokens on this general purpose blockchain, or whether it's sort of like an EVM, like a rootstock or something like that. So, I mean, that was a really interesting project for me, and I dove deep into that just to sort of figure out. And obviously, it was Jeff Garsick, so you had to kind of pay attention a little bit. And I just kind of looked into the tech behind that, and I thought, hey, you know what? That's really not that uncommon, because chains like Wand Chain, they kind of do a token sale, they sell an ERC20, and then when they launch their mainnet, they do a token swap, right? So they let you import your ERC20, they burn it, they create it on their end, on their own chain. So I think that hopefully we're getting to that kind of cross-chain functionality. I know that the team on Aeon is working on that as well, and there's an interoperability alliance between OneChain, Zilliqa, Aeon, and maybe some others. So it's exciting stuff. I think NFTs just around the corner. But again, it all comes back to maybe having a proper sort of standard around these tokens. And like I mentioned when we first jumped on the call, ERC20 obviously got standardized pretty quick. Fungible tokens on a general purpose blockchain, great idea, right? Basically, we have the main chain with our accounts and balances of Ether, and then we've got our other tokens that we launch on top of the Ethereum blockchain in a smart contract. So every smart contract that is an ERC20 token simply launches another mapping of accounts and balances that maintains this new fungible token. So that's an incredible sort of rallying behind a standard interface by the community. What does that mean? That means that applications, wallets, exchanges can all implement any ERC20 token that conforms to that standard by simply adding another address or letting the user add another address. So I don't know, what your audience is like, but I mean, I've added custom tokens to my MetaMask, especially when I was learning Solidity and I wanted to, go through the tutorials, make my own ERC20 token and just see what it was like. So this is a really interesting aspect. So now that ERC 721 is finalized, you could see the same thing happening with non-fungible tokens. And then this leads to interoperability. I mean, it's sort of like, basically a consistent data and functional interface that we can rely on across chains. I think even Neo, and maybe you could clear that up for me, Amir. I think Neo implemented like the NEP5, which is their fungible token standard as well, right? So it basically has the same kind of properties, or at least there's a mapping there between the two. So, could you actually burn some project that was on Neo? I can't think of any off the top of my head. Could you burn those tokens and then bring them onto the Ethereum blockchain? Could you actually do it?
Do you think we could? Do you think we can do it like, how they have atomic swaps? Well, we're super early in the atomic swaps, but do you think it'd be possible to do like atomic swaps with NFTs in the future?
I think so. I think actually that would be a really cool use of them. And I think that actually not quite an atomic swap across chains, but something that kind of was funny that came out a couple of weeks ago was that there's a project called Crypto Dragons or something like that, and they were basically offering people to burn their CryptoKitty in exchange for a brand new shiny Crypto Dragon. And that's kind of like that's where this whole permissionless innovation I was describing earlier, with all these different game layers and things can be used across different games. I mean, maybe that's perhaps a different take on permissionless innovation than most, but it's still it's kind of, it's playful, it's kind of funny, it's interesting.
Cool, man. So if you had to say your predictions in the next 3 months in the whole space, what do you see?
So I actually I have a bit of a kind of a strong opinion around this, and that a lot of the early exuberance and projects from 2017, they were building protocols. So basically, their own token powered protocols, and building a layer in between. So I'm going to use my hand here. There's sort of the core Ethereum blockchain, and then there's sort of the application layer. So wallets, exchanges, decentralized apps. they were building their protocols in between there and trying to kind of provide a level of service. And you know, some of the projects were, you know, I don't want to offend any projects out there, but they were a bit naive, and you know, they're saying that they're going to offer something that is very, very kind of abstract in general. So something like a fungible token, or offering a protocol where they said, you know, we're gonna basically offer non-fungible tokens, but in order to get these non-fungible tokens, you'll have to get our fungible token first. So these kind of projects are, you know, they're kind of selling themselves as protocols when they're really abstract, and they really should be sold as standards. So I feel strongly that in between the core Ethereum blockchain, or other blockchains, there's a lot of work that needs to be done on scaling. You know, they're working on sharding, they're working on changing consensus mechanisms and all sorts of stuff, and adding new opcodes to the smart contract language, and the ways that you can publish contracts and call functions on the blockchain. In between core and in between the application layer, which we all know and experience through wallets and exchanges and dApps, there's sort of there are protocols like 0x for trading tokens, and it provides a token that allows you to collect fees from trading tokens. But there's also standards. So there's also ERC20 and ERC721 now, and a bunch of other standards. So I kind of see this space is sort of emerging as sort of a wavy space where we're starting as a community to figure out the lines between, you know, what should be abstract, general purpose, standard on top of core that can be leveraged by protocols to do something that is truly unique, truly bespoke and special with their smart contract protocol. So I see that this is still in between core and application. This is still a wavy kind of space of sort of standard and protocol. And I think that we're going to start to see more standards being proposed, because it actually helps more of the genuinely useful protocol projects basically get adoption and traction. And now, why would you standardize, you know, something like a fungible token or a non-fungible token? Well, as I mentioned before, it allows wallets and apps and decentralized exchanges to basically instantly add new tokens to their interface by basically just adding another contract address. So I think that standards really help to alleviate the burden on the application layer. And then, of course, you know, if those applications don't have to worry about how they talk to the Ethereum blockchain and these different protocols, and they can basically speak through standard interfaces, then they can focus on what's really important, which is user adoption and good UI, UX, and basically onboarding new users into crypto assets. So that's sort of where I kind of see the space going, is an increased importance in standards, alleviating the burden on application developers, so that any web developer in the future should literally be able to, you know, npm install marketplace and then take it from there and create some kick-ass UX and get a lot of people on board their dApp.
Well said, man. I pretty much concur with everything that you said. If people want to get a hold of you or get a contact you, what's the best resource?
Sure, yeah. You can find me on Twitter. It's a little long, but it's Matt D, and then my last name is LOCKYER, or, you know, lock your tokens up. And you can also find me on Medium under the same handle, Matt D Lockyer. Yeah, that's the kind of the two main spaces that I sort of.
I'll make sure that I put in the
space.
show notes below so everyone has access to that. And I highly recommend you guys follow Matt. Like, he puts out amazing information on Twitter and is a really good writer as well. And specifically, if you're into NFTs or anything within the ERC721 family, fucking follow him. Trust me.
Sounds great. Thanks for having me on, Amir. And yeah, lots of interesting projects in the NFT space coming out. Just a quick shout out, if you don't mind. So a lot of really good works being done by the 0x cert team and sort of those identity tokens I mentioned earlier, and validating the KYC for those tokens. That's really interesting. Just some breaking stuff like coming out literally today. And they've got William and Ricken as an advisor, and he's the gentleman. He's at Full Decent, who basically wrapped up the 721 standard literally last week. So this is all just happening right now, which is exciting times for the space. And then also I'd have to mention the Nifty Conf happening in Hong Kong, July 24th to 26th. So that can be found at nifty.gg, nifty.gg.
BlockGeeks will be helping them out too. Thanks for the.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, that's right. I saw free education. Yeah. So that's actually, it's cool you mentioned BlockGeeks. It's actually a conference and a hackathon. And we've got a lot, like we've got some of the best projects in the space coming. The guys from Loom are doing, you mentioned state channels. They're doing incredible work on state channels. Axie Affinity, incredible looking game and game design coming out. Coin Artist from Neon District, which is a game that's it's a bit in teaser stealth mode right now. They're coming out soon, and they're all going to Nifty, and they're all hacking, and they're all getting together as a community, you know, to figure out how we actually build these things together. And like I said, you know, different projects are going to do very unique and different things with non-fungible tokens, but we should really come together around the abstract standards and the interfaces that make it easier for wallets and exchanges to kind of support these assets, because that's where a lot of the permissionless innovation and stuff is going to happen. Also want to give a shout out to my own channel that I've been working really hard on, and my own standard, basically composable non-fungible tokens. It's ERC 998, so or CNFTs or crypto composables. And all the discussion for that is happening on a Discord channel called Nifty Magicians that has about over 180 members now. And there's some fierce discussion about the future of the space, and a lot of it's around games. So if you're into blockchain games and you're into NFTs, check out Nifty Magicians, and I'll throw Amir the link for the show notes as well.
Awesome, Matt. Thank you, brother. Like always, talk to you soon, man.
Talk to you soon. Take care.
Cheers.
Bye.